I just want to give a supply chain tip. I keep coming up with the same thing every day, on every session, sorry. And it's in regards to customer service via social media. Basically, a lot of companies they're basically not doing it right. They don't like the negative comments, they don't want to address them on social media. But these days, thousands of people are looking at that and looking at how you respond to that. And responding to that right on social media can be huge. It can be shared around to whole different businesses and great for the brand as well. So just basically, make sure your customer service team is on social media and vetting these comments.
I think always involve as many people as possible when you're changing anything within your business. Get the team together, get the experts together. I think that's the best thing I would put out there.
And we're essentially talking to people today around how they can implement efficiencies throughout their whole supply chain. And look, it's really, I guess, poignant to note as a consequence of today's discussion is that every organisation has an opportunity to implement efficiency projects throughout their organisation, and that it doesn't need to be an expensive process. With efficiency, we're looking at generating a return on investment, and so I think it's important to be able to sort of pitch the opportunity in a way that that really has an organisation and the people within the organisation understand and see that value, whether it not only be from a cost perspective, but also what it's able to generate in terms of a sustainable long-term benefit to the environment as well.
I think my couple of big takeaways in terms of tips are try and go towards a zero user interface and invest in the platform. Investing in the platform is what's going to pay major dividends to you into the future, and look very closely at integration of the Internet of Things. Otherwise, very happy with the event, certainly happy to come back and try it again. Thanks.
Today we had a lot of people come to our table and ask how they could drive the best value out of their relationships with the 3PL and 4PL arrangements that they had, and I was really surprised to learn that they didn't really understand that the biggest motivation for a 3PL or a 4PL provider was to have long-term relationships and long-standing relationships rather than short-term wins.
I guess understanding the extent of the impacts of drug and alcohol in the workplace, and what I've discovered is that very few people assess and evaluate that as they would any other aspect of supply. So that's the main thing, I guess, to correctly assess whether you have an issue and to what extent, and then implement a plan to deal with it.
It's people to define their goals in their career. I mean, where do they want to go to? You know, if they don't have a path, how are they expected to get anywhere in a way? Good things can happen, but if you have a plan and you write it down, you have a higher probability of achieving it. That's for sure.
I think number one supply chain tip is about keeping it simple. Supply chain and logistics is not rocket scientistry. Keeping it simple is absolutely a must-do item.
People ask me, what's the number one tip I would give to organisations in warehousing? And okay, there's two things I want to share. First of all, when you design a warehouse, design for the minimal touches of the goods. That's really important. And the second one is, if you can, one-way flow. If you follow those two rules, everything else will fall into place.
So ours is a logistics solution company, and the best tip was about the end-to-end visibility, how important it is for the logistics company to have end-to-end visibility of their supply chain and logistics operations to maximize profits.
The most valuable tip for us is actually don't automate for automation's sake. The best thing to do is to actually really understand what the workflows are and automate where you really do get the best bang for your buck, rather than saying we need automation and you're not getting the right return on investment.
So as well as talking about 3PL relationships today, we're also talking about 4PL. Now 4PL, people will spend hours arguing about what it is, but it was amazing what level of consensus we actually had around the table about what a 4PL should be. And it all ran back to the roots of something we've been saying for a while, that 4PL isn't a solution set, it's a culture. And I think there was agreement around the table that successful 4PLs are driven by a culture, and the success of that 4PL is down to the culture of the relationship.
Well, I think with supply chain, it is, I think it is quite well known that efficiencies in manufacturing are so highly developed, and that it actually the supply chain, there's still a lot of areas where a lot of money to be saved, and that is important for all companies, of course.
Probably the most valuable tip that I gave at the coaching session today was trying to focus on preemptive and planning phases of contract management rather than putting out fires and reacting to problems. And that is only possible where you have right people in the right jobs and people who are not only commercially savvy but are able to build trusting long-term relationship with the suppliers.